Welcome everybody. I'm talking today about diversification and how that affects a portfolio. I'm not going to go too deep into a lot of the details and the nitty-gritty of it, but I just want to give a general overview of how it works. Okay, so this is why diversification is so important to have in an investment portfolio. You know, in earlier episodes, I was talking about Bitcoin, and I was talking about how when it comes to the markets, that Bitcoin was a good asset to have over the last 10 years in comparison to things like gold or S&P 500 or other types of investments it was able to outperform. But you might be asking yourself, well, then why don't I just put all my money in there and be willing to risk it? And that's because when you're exposed to one particular stock, what ends up happening, and Bitcoin obviously is a commodity, it's not necessarily a stock, but if you have something like Bitcoin, what happens if Bitcoin decides to crash? Like, what happens if it just goes down, something happens to Bitcoin and it doesn't perform well? Well, what diversification does is it helps you to have healthy returns in different types of investments. And not only even in just different types of investments, like say you buy crypto and you buy Ethereum, which are two different types of crypto, you're still exposed to crypto. But by investing in different types of industries, it helps to reduce the overall risk. Think of it like an insurance agent. You know, they might have, let's say, 100 policies for different homes. And those homes have, the protection of, let's say, if it's fire and flood, just as an example. And so let's say, two of the homes or one of the home decides to have a fire. Well, those other ones actually are still generating that money coming into the policy. And so overall, the returns are actually not going to be hit as much just because that one home, cost a lot. And so that's what happens with diversification. And believe it or not, there's actually healthy forms of diversification where you can actually look at different types of scenarios where even if you have higher levels of diversification or lower levels of diversification, there's sort of like a sweet spot where, if you have a certain threshold of diversification, it becomes really healthy for a portfolio. So you can actually there's ways to actually incrementally increase your portfolio, but not have to expose yourself to more risk. And so that diversification helps to do that. So having diversification is very healthy. With diversification, you're able to have different types of rates of return depending on how you diversify. And so if you actually look at bundling different types of stocks or bundling different types of assets together, there's all sorts of different ways to be able to look at what are the returns. And so when you start diversifying like that, you'll start to notice too that you can actually have different levels of higher returns depending on how diversified you are, how exposed you are to one asset over another. So diversification is good, and not only is it good, there are calculations that you can do with diversification depending on how weighted different asset classes are in your portfolio. You can actually increase your returns and at the same time decrease your risk, your standard deviation, let's say. And so we're going to be talking more about those types of things in future episodes and doing comparisons of different types of portfolios so you can kind of look at those things. And so I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on this. If you want to leave a comment below, feel free to do so. And again, we have a free course, The 10 Pillars of Investing, if you're interested in that, and another course coming up called the essentials of investing. And so we go into different types of portfolios and talk about investing on a very basic level and easy to digest for somebody who may be fairly new to investing. But the idea is that we want to be able to communicate and relay really healthy information and get people started on the right foot. So if that sounds like you, maybe consider joining that. It's extremely affordable. I mean, if you were to jump into one of the classes, You could easily just get into a class, take it, and then be done with it, and that's it. There's no real large cost to you. It's simply just getting the information, and that's it. And then you can just be on your way, and you can take that for what it is and see if that helps you to increase your returns, or at least look at your investments from a new light. Take care.